I'm really passionate about Cooperative Advantage because I've been in the journey of organizational and leadership effectiveness since you really could say the mid 70s when I was first a co-op student. Uh, in 1975, I had a job at the refinery in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, of the Exxon Corporation at that time. And I remember walking out into the plant, and they showed me the number one pipe still, which was closed down. This is the distillation column, but it was built before the turn of the century of the 20th century, so in the 1800s. And I was just wondering how much oil is sitting underneath this refinery, and yet people running around there just considered this normal. And so my first experience in business was we normalize things that make no sense very, very quickly. And that was my experience all along. Engineering, I was a chemical engineer, and engineering uses logic and things conform to science and it works. But what I found was everything difficult in business was working with human dynamics to get things done. There were levels of resistance and levels of really using the rearview mirror to move forward. I remember my first real complex consulting assignment was for Air New Zealand. And I was a junior consultant and had the privilege of meeting with the CEO along with my vice president and team members. And I also worked with ground level employees. So I actually met people at every level in the organization. And I was amazed to really experience what I would call the stratification by level, different worldview in each level. And I also found silos where there might be one department here and another one adjacent. They have to work together, but their worldviews were so different. It was almost like the pigeonholes that you would have in a mailbox when you go into the post office, that everybody, every unit was its own reality. And they really had difficulty understanding each other and working together. So cooperative advantage is, well, how do you get all of these to work together effectively? And one of the things that I noticed is that leaders tend to operate like mechanics. They take out their wrenches and their other tools, and they try to change the strategy, change the process and whatever, but they don't look internally. But I had the privilege of engaging in quite a few sports from the time that I was in high school. And I realized that in sports, when we want to get better, we start with ourselves first, our own conditioning, our own training, individually and as a team. And yet in business, we go to meetings and we're on our iPhones instead of paying attention. Who would get on a football field or a soccer field looking at their iPhones? So there's just some mentality in business that we do things that we all know make no sense. So cooperative advantage is about leadership and creating cooperation, but it's about leading at three levels. Leading self first, then leading groups, because everything we do is some form of a group, and a group can be a whole company or just a project team. And also leading networks, because now more than ever, we need to engage people that are not full-time, that are not only committed to our organization, and we need to get them to be partners and work with us in various different ways. So how do we lead at all of these levels? The other thing about leadership is there's so many theories around leadership, and these keep changing. But what I like is to think of leadership as a process. And leading is anything that I might do that moves people and technology towards an end goal, towards performance. And there may be many steps in this path. And so there's no such thing as just a leader. There is activities of leading, but those only work when there's activities of following. And following is an inner relationship with leading where we don't just take orders, but we reciprocally relate, and then we execute. And so all leaders should be great followers, and all followers should also be great leaders. So how do we get this dance of leading and following as part of one whole dynamic? So that's another very important part of cooperative advantage. For the three levels of leadership, self, group, and network, there are also three components. And I see that leadership, for Cooperative Advantage at least, has to start with character. And I define character, when I look at myself, it's not that hard to pin and to identify kind of some deep values, like doing the right thing. Most of us are wired with those. What's much more difficult is to actually have my actions align with my deepest values all of the time. Character is about action, not about what you say, it's about what you do. And your consistency in acting with the greatest integrity, the highest integrity. That creates trust, and that is the bond that enables us to cooperate, and it builds reputation. So the core of leadership, the very core of leadership is character. The second element of leadership I call coordination, and that is, how do we get people to work together effectively? And one of the challenges is that we each see the world from our own perspective, and it's very easy to get entangled and to have conflict. How can we take every single conflict and turn that into an opportunity for a creative integration where we take the best of all the ideas and create something new that's better and includes all of that? And that can only happen when our perspectives change, when through our interactions, we see the world anew and we see it in a stronger, better way. That's the external side of coordination, but there's an internal side as well, because I often have different parts of me that are in conflict. And when I'm in conflict with someone else, it's often some parts of me. So what's the inner work that needs to be done so that I'm fully unified and I can truly interact with others in a clear manner? So when we coordinate at our best, we open the power of each individual, and they're engaged, empowered, and energized. And this is unified together towards a common objective. So it unleashes the full power of the organization, the group, the unit towards what we want to get accomplished. That to me is deep coordination. The third characteristic is what I call competence. And competence to me isn't really about how good you are. It's actually whether you are on a disciplined journey toward mastery in both leadership and social dynamics. So am I learning to be a better leader, and am I learning to interact with people more effectively? And this requires a really high level of awareness, and it requires that we really be on in our game more and more of the time. And this is a journey. So one of the hallmarks of Cooperative Advantage is that the organization becomes a place of learning. It becomes a place where we reflect back to each other. And every meeting becomes a place where we all grow together. I took up the art of Aikido a number of years ago. And Aikido is a Japanese martial art. It was developed in the last century. O-sensei, who developed it, passed away in the late 60s. And it is really called the path of peace. And it's about being attacked, blending with the energy of the attack, and moving it, harmonizing with that so that the outcome is peaceful and no one gets hurt. And in Aikido, you have a dojo where you polish your character and you work together to get better and better at this. And I can imagine where companies, rather than being places that just stress people out, and by the end of the day, you come home and you kick the dog and yell at the spouse and you're just all aggravated, I can see the day when organizations can be places where they're like the dojo, where you go, you get great results, and at the same time, you improve yourself. You improve your skills, your capabilities, your character. And at the end of the day, you're energized, and your work now has a ripple effect in the rest of your life. We spend so many hours working. How can we turn those hours into true benefit? And that is what Cooperative Advantage is truly about.